Hello friends, welcome back to another video and a special hello if you are new. Clementine is here with me. Today I'm going to be sharing with you some niche nonfiction recommendations. So kind of along the lines of if you like this or if you've read this, then I recommend this nonfiction book for you. I have 5 picked out, I guess rather, but when I was making my list, I actually had more. So I might do another one of these videos in the future at some point, but anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. I wish you could see how good she's just sitting here, like she thinks she's on camera, I think. Alright, so here we go. Firstly, I'm going to recommend, it's sold as individual books, or you can buy it as a whole book with the individual books combined into it within volumes. But I really recommend this nonfiction if you are a fan of Elena Ferrante's Neapolitan novels. Also, if you are a fan of women in translation, or if you are a fan of Sylvia Plath. And that is Tove Ditlevsen's, I don't know, I'm probably mispronouncing her last name, but it is her series of memoirs. So there are 3. You have the first one, which is childhood, which describes her childhood. This is my favorite in all of the trilogy or the series because I just love coming of age stories, and it was just a really nice tale of her childhood. And then it goes into youth. I would say that this is the one that reminds me the most of Elena Ferrante's Neapolitan novels because it talks about her desire of wanting to become a poet and to become a writer when she had kind of those societal expectations put on her to become a wife and how that affected her experience. And then her last one is Dependency, which is more into adulthood, motherhood, but it also goes into her dependency on drug use. So it is a little bit heavier of the 3, but these are just beautifully and stunningly written. The prose is amazing. I know that at the time of her death, Tove was one of the most renowned writers within Denmark. And I just think if you kind of love, again, Sylvia Plath, like that tragic artist, or if you love kind of the nuances and the themes that are found within Elena Ferrante's novel, or if you would like to read some nonfiction women in translation, then I just think that this is definitely the way that you should go. Like I said, you can buy all 3 books within one volume, but honestly, these are so beautiful. Why would you not want to collect these copies? Nextly, of course, I had to recommend a coming-of-age story. So if you love a good coming-of-age story, I recommend I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. This is the first. I think there are 6 or 7 within her autobiographical series. I've read the first 3 or 4, but I haven't read all the way through yet. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings tells of her story from 6, I believe, to 16. It starts off with her going to live with her grandma in Alabama, and the racism and things that she saw growing up. It later goes into, I think she goes to San Francisco, and I want to say that there is another town or city in there. But again, it is just beautifully written prose, and it is a coming-of-age story. So you have really heavy themes that Maya went through within her lifetime, and some of it can be kind of triggering and hard to read about, so I would definitely check anything like that. But again, I think she does a really good job of kind of letting it happen within a child's eyes, or within her eyes as she was a child. And it was just, I don't know, just really well written throughout that. And I feel like it provides, I don't know, almost a more easier to swallow in some ways because it's not graphic, but harder to swallow in other ways because you are reading about it as a child, you know, through the eyes of a child, and you as an adult know like what's going on. I just absolutely love this book. I've read it 2 or 3 times within my lifetime, and I still think about coming back to it all the time. It is just incredibly thought-provoking, and I think there's, you know, as someone who truly loves coming of age stories, I think that there's something really special about reading about like a literal one. Like this is something that someone actually experienced within their lifetime. But yeah, I just really love that one. I really recommend it. So if you are a big fan of coming of age stories, you should definitely check out I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. Next, if you are a fan of historical fiction, I highly recommend you check out Testament of Youth by Vera Brittain. This is a memoir set during, right before and during and right after World War I. Vera Brittain became a nurse during the war. She also lost her fiance, her brother, and some childhood friends to the war. And I think that it really highlights the loss that people that really heavily impacted people, because they lost, like, it was, you know, I think a lot of people, you talk about World War I, and it talks about how literally it's like the lost generation, because so many young men were lost to the war. And I think this just really highlights that. I think that it really highlights the atrocities of the war and what the average experience was for someone during World War I. This is really beautifully written. I absolutely loved this book when I read it for the first time. And there's also a really stunning film with Alicia Vikander and Kit Harington, and there might be a few other like bigger names in there, but they are the 2 stars. And it goes a little bit into like the politics and the feminism that came from the war. And I just think that it is a really beautiful tale. And if you love historical fiction, especially like World War II, World War I historical fiction, then I really think that you would enjoy this one. Nextly, if you are in the mood for some adventure or want to read something a little bit more adventurous, then I would recommend you check out Into Thin Air by Jon Krakauer. Jon Krakauer is a journalist, and he's written quite a few novels, and are not necessarily novels, but I guess nonfiction books, and they've all been very good. He was on Mount Everest in 1996 during one of like the worst disasters that Mount Everest had experienced. So you have an experienced journalist on this trip and on Mount Everest as this disaster was happening, and I think it provides a really interesting perspective. Jon Krakauer also goes into the commercialism of Mount Everest and kind of thoughts on if that's ethical. I have somehow found my way onto Everest Talk, and I find the whole thing incredibly fascinating, but I also don't like being on it because I personally just think it's really kind of disturbing how people walk past like deceased people, and like, I don't know, I just think there's something very weird about it. And I've seen videos and things of people getting to the summit. It just doesn't seem worth it to me, to be honest with you. But this is just very exciting. It's a very adventurous, and again, it kind of goes into those debates about whether it is ethical to still be climbing Mount Everest, how it affects the Sherpas and the animals that have to go in the communities around Mount Everest. It is really fascinating, but still providing that like adventure-ish feel. Last but not least, if you are single, if you are in your 20s, or if you really just kind of want to have a renaissance with your friends, I really recommend that you read Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. This sums up Dolly Alderton's 20s. It talks about jobs, you know, romantic endeavors, her experiences in apartments and college, and it all centers around her close female friendships. And I think a lot of people go into Everything I Know About Love assuming it to be about romantic love. And then I think when you're thrown for the loop and see that it's actually about friendship, especially female friendship, I think that in long enduring female friendship, I think that's really beautiful. And I think that it's really important to focus on that, especially in your 20s when, you know, you have this friend who's getting married, and this friend who's having a baby, and then this friend who's still in college. And I think even moving into our early 30s, I think it can still be very, very relevant. and I just think that it is beautiful. It's very witty, very funny. I listened to the audiobook and she narrates it, and I loved her narration so much. I also feel like it's very like Bridget Jones-ish. So if you are a fan of like Bridget Jones's Diary, then I also think that you could enjoy it as well. All right, friends, a little bit of a shorter video, but I just really wanted to recommend, you know, some nonfiction books. I really do like to read nonfiction books, and I really love like biographies and memoirs. As you could probably tell, I think within some form, all of these were a memoir or a biography of sorts. But those are some of my favorite books to read, and I think there can be such fear around going into nonfiction. It seems daunting. A lot of nonfiction books are quite longer than your fiction books. They can be a little bit heavier to read. They require quite a bit more concentration, but there are some really beautiful experiences to be found in nonfiction, and just beautiful stories that deserve a place alongside our favorite fictional stories. So I hope that these inspired you to pick up some nonfiction or helped you add some books to your list. Please let me know. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go. Thank you guys so much for being here. I truly do appreciate your time. And I will see you very soon in another video. Bye.